What is going on, RP fam? Thank you guys so much for checking in with me today. A couple of days ago, I posted a video, my top running back 2, running back 3s. These are running backs outside of the top 50 ADP. I wanted to continue that series today by looking even deeper. We're gonna dig outside of the top 100 picks, and I'm gonna look at 3 running backs who I think are going way too late in drafts that have big time upside that could potentially help you win your leagues. We're gonna deep dive as to why I think that is, give you guys some stats, analysis, and information to help back up my claim, get you guys prepared as we head into drafting season. Quick reminder, I do all of my analysis and my scoring and my statistics from half point PPR. So if you're wondering where I am coming from in my opinions, that is the baseline I am using. Once running backs are done, I'm going to be continuing this series with wide receivers as well. So keep an eye out for that. If you haven't done so, make sure you like the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel too. That helps me out so very much. I appreciate all the support I continue to get from my current subscribers. You guys are the best. Let's continue to learn, grow, and get better together. This is year 3 of Relentless Press. So without any further ado, let's hop into it. The first running back who I love outside of the top 100 ADP, currently it is July 18th today as of recording. So Jamal Williams is the first running back I am looking at. He's going as RB37 right now. So he is not even on the RB3 radar. None of these guys that I am looking at are going to be. But that does not mean that there is not value to be found. So let's look at some of the reasons why I think Williams could be a big hit for us in 2023. And to understand why I think that he could hit for us in 2023, let's look back to 2022 and see what history shows us. Williams had a massive 2022. He led the league in rushing touchdowns and touchdowns at the position. Williams had a monster load of them for the Lions. He also had a league high 41 carries inside the 10-yard line. And while that is not likely, and I would say is basically impossible for him to get back to that number for the Saints this season, what it does show us and New Orleans is his capability of doing so. That amount of carries in close like that takes a toll on the body. Williams is someone who showed that he can stand up to that type of punishment. We also saw last year that the Saints showed us they would rather give the ball to other players in close than AK-41. Alvin Kamara was not the goal line back for basically the entirety of the season for the Saints last year. Now, it was a mixture of players who had that role. One of the big ones, though, was Taysom Hill. So if they're going to show that they can give those kind of touches to a running back, tight end, quarterback, whatever you want to call Taysom Hill, that also means that they are willing and probably are likely to pass that role on to someone else. Williams would easily fit the bill because he showed them last year he can take that punishment and he can handle a goal line type of role. Now, speaking of Alvin Kamara, we do not know what is going to happen to him this year, and that is another reason I love the prospect of having a Jamal Williams on my team very late for basically nothing. He's going past the 10th round. Kamara did not have a suspension last year, but he is open to potentially getting dinged for multiple games in 2023. And if that were to happen and Williams was to take the RB1 role in New Orleans, there would be big time upside. Now, the other thing that I want to look at when we're looking at the prospects for Jamal Williams is the tread on the tires that he does or he does not have. Last year was Williams' first in his entire career where he had over 153 carries. So that means he has plenty left in the tank. There is no reason to think that he is going to be slowing down as far as statistically or efficiency anytime soon. And he did not break last year. We talked about the 40 plus touches inside the 10-yard line. He had a total of 280 opportunities for the Detroit Lions in 2022, and Williams did not miss much time with injuries at all. So that gives us hope that potentially the same thing could happen this year Kamara was to get injured or suspended, and Williams was to take over the reins of this offense. Now, speaking of this offense, we also think it is going to be much more potent and better overall with more stability at the quarterback position now that Derek Carr has entered the building. I think this is exactly why the Saints brought him in, and I think it's also possible Carr is going to be just learning the system. It is all new to him, that the Saints probably lean on the running game a little bit more, at least early on in the season, and if they find success, there's no reason for them to shy away from it. So just another possibility of opportunity for Williams. The last thing that we are going to look at when we're talking about Jamal Williams' situation is the offense around him outside of the quarterback position. When we look at the wide receiver room, Chris Olave had an excellent rookie season. He looks primed to take a step forward and take that dominating wide receiver one role now that he has the quarterback. That probably means the Saints offense is going to get better in that regard. Not only do the Saints have Chris Olave, but they also have Michael Thomas coming back. And at this point, he is supposed to be fully healthy. I know we've heard that before, but until we see otherwise, we can assume that both with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas out wide, especially with the steps forward that Juwan Johnson and Taysom Hill really took last year as an offense, there are enough pieces surrounding Williams that this offense could be better than anticipated, which means even more opportunities to produce for the running back. When you put all of that together for a running back who is not even being drafted as an RB3 to also have the 9th best strength of schedule, there are just too many positives for me to pass up on Williams at his current price. The next running back that I want to take a look at that I think could smash his current ADP is Khalil Herbert out of Chicago. He's currently going as the RB38 after Williams as the 110th pick overall. The first thing that we're going to look at is, just like we talked about with Williams, that strength of schedule for Khalil Herbert is awesome. Second easiest projected schedule in the entire NFL. That is something that I automatically, in almost every case, want to get on my team. But let's look deeper into Herbert. What did he do on a per touch basis? How did he look last year? We know that Chicago was kind of a dumpster fire on offense for much of the year. So why do I all of a sudden want to get on Herbert's bandwagon? We're going to start with how he performed against David Montgomery, who is now gone to division rival Detroit. So Montgomery was outperformed by Herbert in almost every single rushing metric that matters last season. K-Herb averaged 5.7 yards per tote, which is borderline elite, and that was 1.5 yards more than David Montgomery averaged. Herbert did not struggle behind that offensive line, and given an opportunity to do it in 2023, there's no reason to think that that is going to change. Now, had Herbert been able to stay healthy last season, he probably would have and certainly should have taken over as the RB1 in Chicago. So we have seen the skill set from him. This is not something we are projecting. This is something that has actually already happened. The next thing I want to touch on is that in the 2 games, very small sample size I give you, but in the 2 games that we had Khalil as an RB1 in that backfield for the Bears, he had 234 yards rushing in them. Once again, something he showed us that we don't have to project. We talked about David Montgomery now being gone. So in walks Donta Foreman. He is kind of a grinder, but not someone that we have seen on a per touch basis crush it with efficiency over the course of his entire career. So I'm not sure that that is big time competition for Khalil. He has big time upside if he can take that #1 role, or if an injury were to occur where he was getting more than just the lion's share, but 20+ touches per game, which I think is well within his range of outcomes. Final thing that I think gives us hope for more production from Herbert in 2023 is that Justin Fields ended up getting hurt last season. I don't think it would really surprise anyone to see Chicago try to protect Fields a little bit more and take away at least a chunk of those designed rushing plays. I know he was dominant in them last season, but if he is not healthy and on the field, let's be frank, Chicago does not have a chance of competing with the new ownership and system in place. I think that they know that, and they're going to work work on protecting Fields more, so I see him running less. Now that all being said, this is still going to be a run first team, which means more opportunities in the backfield, and we touched on it a little bit, but even though that offense was not very successful for much of 2022, they did add DJ Moore in that big trade from Carolina. He is a huge blue chip piece on the outside that helps open up the offense as a whole, gives Justin Fields a true and legitimate wide receiver one option, making this offense better and giving the Bears as a team more offensive touchdown opportunities. So a lot to love about Herbert and a lot to like about his current price. The last running back that I want to deep dive on is Jerick McKinnon. He is going way outside the top 40 running backs at RB 43, outside of the top 125 picks. And he is someone who has massive upside. Let's look at what he did last season. That gives us hope that he can once again hit for us this year. And he was a top 10 scorer in points per game from weeks 10 to week 17 in 2022. That is a fairly large sample size. In that stretch, McKinnon had 35 receptions. That was third most for the position in the league. And he also had 7 receiving scores. The Chiefs heavily implemented him into the offense, and he made good on it. Now you might wonder why McKinnon got all of that uses as a running back, and that is because the other receiving options in Kansas City are basically question marks. No one has been able to step up outside of Kelsey, and that just means they are going to continue to rely on those who are producing for them. McKinnon was one of those players in that Super Bowl run for the Chiefs last season. He carved out that significant role when they needed it most, so it is very likely that continues to 2023. McKinnon had 3 or more targets in all but 5 games last year. So even though it was a small sample size when he was that top 10 scorer, it was over the course of the entire season where we saw him be targeted and have success. We would never wish injury on anybody, but if Isaiah Pacheco were to go down, it would be a massive role that Jerick McKinnon could step into, and Kansas City scored over 29 points per game last season. They were a top 5 scoring offense, and they are going to do that again this season, so I want pieces of that type of offense. Now, if Pacheco were to get injured, you might think that that does not mean McKinnon is the one who would benefit, but we have seen a decent workload from him in his past. In Minnesota, 4 years there. In 2 out of those 4 years, he had over 150 carries. So we have seen him with that hefty workload. So being able to handle them in Minnesota, really no reason to believe he couldn't do so in Kansas City. We think about the weekly upside that he has, and as late as he is going in half PPR and full PPR leagues, there's really no reason not to pull the trigger on him. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on some running backs that are outside the top 100 ADP, who you have found yourself targeting and where you have a lot of stock in or plan on as drafting season approaches. Drop your comments down below. I love the engagement. One of the main reasons that I continue to do these videos. Ask your questions about trades as well. I personally play in a dynasty league, so I have some experience and would love to give you guys my thoughts on any opportunities you may have coming up, and I can't help if you do not ask. Make sure you smash the like button on the video if you enjoyed the content today, and please consider subscribing as well as Relentless Press pushes for our first 1,000 subscribers. This is Relentless Press. I'm your host, Abraham Opaz, and I will see you next time.